There we go.
There we go. Great. All right, call the meeting to order. It's actually 5:37, according to my watch. And we have Amanda St. John, Library Director, present. We have myself, J.R. Smith-Taku. We have Chris McPherson, John Books, Helen Muth, and Dave Mills. So we have no visitors today, so we're going to move on to the consent agenda. So we have the three items on the consent agenda, this agenda. So if you have anything that you'd like added to it, this is the time, minutes from the previous meeting, and then we have 2 batches of bills from the 20th of last month and the 3rd of this month. So unless someone would like to pull something for discussion, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I would so move.
I'll second.
Okay, sounds good. And we have to go through a roll call vote for that. So I'm just going to start at the top of my little thing and go across them. So Chris, your vote.
In favor.
Okay. John, your vote.
Yes.
Helen, your vote.
Yes.
And Dave, your vote.
Aye.
I am an aye as well. So as they say, the ayes have it. All right, so that clears that. So then we move on to the Library Friends Liaison Report. So Chris, do you have anything?
Things are beginning to stir. Amanda sent us a link to a webinar about friends and how to raise money without book sales. And several people were going to sign up for that. I don't know if they've had a chance to listen to it yet, but we're at least alive. So
Great.
Yay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just write that down as saying that the organization is starting to make plans for future fundraising.
Sounds great.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you. I'm really grateful that that organization is still with us.
I'm hoping it'll be able to pick things up in the next couple of months. Yeah.
Great. That's really cool. All right, and an ALS board report. Helen, do you have a report for that?
Not a very organized one. Lots of things are going on. And I just received one of the weekly readers again. I mean, I was in the middle of it. That's why I was dashing in after 5:30 because I was trying to read it. I think the thing that I will bring to your attention, there are other things that were on it, but I think Amanda is covering it, like the Friends and also like the webinar she's already announced. So we know that, although they were in this weekly reader. But the eBooks Minnesota is going to be coordinating another of the books for Minnesota, one book Minnesota, or like they did the Winn-Dixie. They're doing that as a group. And this time it's going to be, the book is going to be A Good Time for the Truth. It's edited by Sun Young Shin, and it is a compilation of writings of people of color in Minnesota. And so that will be available on eBooks Minnesota until August. I believe the date was the 21st, but I'm sure that that won't be the last time you get information about it. Many things are going on. The bookmobile is that came from our meeting last, and it is not smooth. The state still, as Amanda has pointed out, their recommendation is not to have the physical library open, but that recognizing, as the state always does, that it is a local decision. But there is some possibility of the reevaluation of how to make materials, or not being as frightened of how much COVID can be left on a surface in that regard. And as Amanda said, that with the way they're handling books, they're double they're double checking or doubling the time so that they are being very much convinced that nothing would be residue that would be effective in causing someone to get COVID. With that, it was a pretty ratty presentation, but all of it's very interesting and all of it's very important in my mind.
Okay, very good. Trying to capture the spirit of that.
I think with the bookmobile, it just points out that you can plan, but it doesn't always work out that way. You have to readjust. You have to be on the ball to look at what is going on to see where things need to be tweaked. And I thought that's the reason I wanted to mention that particular one.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for that. So we'll move on to committee reports then. The big one, which this is kind of the big one for this meeting. We have some other business we need to talk about as well, but the big one for this meeting is the budget proposal for 2021. And so Dave and Amanda and I sat down and we looked at the numbers and we looked at possibilities for shortfalls because of the COVID-19 in 2020. And we also, figured about, if this ripple goes into next year, then potential budget implications for that. But then also, the library is sitting in an okay place because the library budgeted for an assistant library director for pretty much, well, for the entirety of 2020. But we've already gone through a better part of half the year without that position, which frees up a significant amount of money within the budget, which makes 2020 look pretty good as far as the budget that we passed. But we wanted to present an option to the board for the 2021 budget based on those considerations. So the considerations that we discussed on top of, hey, we haven't had this full-time position filled for half of the year, so we're going to have a bunch of leftover money at the end of the year, was that especially in bad economic times, the library has shown itself to be a very valuable resource, and helps people in our community take care of themselves,
Right.
in those really rough financial times. So with that said, we came to the consensus that the best idea for the library is to fund it fully and not rely on reserve monies for 2021, so that we have the ability to do programming that we see fit. We have the flexibility in our budget from some of that overage money from this year, so that we can adapt and we can move towards either new technologies or any kind of changing attitudes that we need to have for a library to continue meeting the needs of the community. So that's the budget that we've put together. And Amanda, I don't know if you want to share your screen or if you want me to share my screen, but then we can talk through it kind of line by line, just so that you know what we're talking about, and then we can as a board discuss it. And if we approve this at this meeting as a board, then we can send this to the city council, who can then discuss it at the that would be the first meeting of July is where they would talk about it. And then if it gets accepted there, then it goes to the county for the rubber stamp, basically. So all right, any questions on that up to where we're at, about the theory about funding the library versus relying on reserves. Does anybody have any questions on any of that?
I have a question, Jay.
Yeah,
Just
go ahead.
because I'm just new to the budgeting process. Who can say no? Can they say, because the city council say, oh, we need that money. I'm glad you got the extra. We're going to take it and use it for X, Y, and Z. Or how does that work?
My understanding, and maybe Amanda can chime in on this too. My understanding is that money that's allocated to the library, it's basically so the county pays half of it, the city pays half of it. I think it's the city that writes the check for the first half of the year, and the county writes a check for the last half of the year. But that money gets transferred to the library, and then it stays there. It's
Okay.
it would take some work and movement by the city council to reallocate those monies after they've been allocated to the library. And it would be,
Excellent.
honestly, I mean, I would not advocate ever for that. It would be politically very, very unpopular
Right.
to start taking allocated money from a public process, especially a joint partnership like this, and then taking that money for use someplace else. I think that would probably put the joint partnership at risk, and I don't think that it's possible to do that.
That's excellent news, all of it. So thank you. That's very helpful.
Okay, I don't know if you have any further clarification on that, Amanda, for your understanding, but that's my understanding of it.
As far as I know, any remaining monies at the end of the year go to the library's fund balance.
Cool.
Fantastic.
Very cool.
Are you able to see the budget on my screen?
Yes.
I'm not
Okay.
I'm not starting at the top. Do I change
It won't fit on the screen unless it's super tiny, so you just have to tell me where you'd like to look.
Okay,
Well,
well,
and before we get into the nitty gritty, are there any other questions about the thoughts behind the proposal, the theory? The only thing I wanted to add was that we discussed trying to cut corners, reducing costs. But the fact of the matter is that our largest cost is our most valuable asset, and that's employees. And there's so much uncertainty right now. We don't want to jeopardize our greatest asset, and the best way I think that we can plan is to just invest in that asset. So that's kind of what we all came to the conclusion of, and then we can just take things as they come. So the other thing we had in mind too is that as far as the county's side of things is concerned, it's an automatic approval if it's less than 5%, and so that's kind of the magic number. We're always trying to keep things below. And again, the largest part of the budget is, or the most significant part is the employee cost, and a lot of those costs are already in negotiated contracts. So there's not a whole lot of wiggle room on that side of things. But that's my 2 cents there. Over.
Right, it's helpful context. Thank you for that, Dave.
Yeah.
I
Go ahead.
want to comment along that line too, because I have been on the budget preparation, and I do generally follow them as closely as I can, and this has been the case. But if you are counting on all of the skills and intellectual assets that we have in the employees, then they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to come up with the needs, and then you can select which ones can some of our other resources be allotted to at the time. And that is what the people gave that money for, is they wanted it to make the library above and beyond keeping the doors open.
Right.
And so the idea of keeping our people fits, I think, with the long term of what the donors have made in their donations.
Correct. Yep, that's an important clarification. We need to keep that as a board. We need to keep that in mind anytime that we seek to use money from those balances. So that's helpful. If we start at the top of the 2021 draft line, that's C. Amanda just highlighted that one. If you look at the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, down to 17, those are all ones that have been estimated by the city. Just like Dave was saying, there are contracts in place that govern the pay increases that the employees get. The city has negotiated with the union what those increases will be. So those things are largely just put in place as estimates. In the past, they've been well, before we got the new healthcare system, they were really super fluctuating. Like they could fluctuate by 12% in a year. But the new healthcare system that we have, for all of its faults, it's very predictable. So then we haven't seen those same fluctuations in the last couple of years, which has been very helpful for the purpose of budgeting. If we go down, 18, starting at 18, there we go. If you just look across the numbers, a lot of those numbers are pretty much identical.
Mm-hmm.
You may notice that on line 25, we took $1,000 out of travel and school. The concept for that was that we may not be able to do much traveling next year. So taking some money out of that budget seemed like it was a frugal thing to do. Books and periodicals, we took some money out of that as well. So that is, that is one of the ways that we made the 4.99%. This is one of the interesting lines in our budget from year to year, where we typically try to keep about $20,000 to $25,000 worth of books and periodicals coming into the collection a year, just to keep things as absolutely fresh as we can. And that number we've been able to subsidize through the 215 if we see fit. So if we wanted to lower that 4.99 a little bit, just for like a white flag to the city and county, that's a place we can do it by allocating some money out of the 215. 31, those are set costs. 32, that's another one that we've slowly increased that over the years because the use of audiovisual and DVDs, I guess audiovisual and DVDs, that stuff use of that's kind of stayed steady. It's the electric journals and ebooks that we've basically been able to offset the expense of that with the money that we get back from ALS. So those things pretty much they take care of themselves. Number 34, other physical materials. So those are the games that can be checked out, games and toys that can be checked out by families. And we haven't reinvested in that for quite some time. So a very modest investment of $200 to that can actually get us some pretty good stuff. And then we can use that as a measurement to see how often does this stuff circulate when we spend some money on it, and have that be an indicator for future investments.
I'd like to comment on that. ALS has toys, and I suppose that the children's librarian is familiar with those. Is that the case, Amanda?
I'm not sure.
They do have kits, and I know
Yeah. Oh, yes, we know about them. We use them.
Okay, good. And this would be in addition to make it more fit our situation, something that's specifically needed by us, right?
So in our library right now, we have a collection of toys that circulate. We also have some that don't. They stay in the library.
Okay.
I don't know which money Steve has allocated to their maintenance. For example, if he needed to update the collection, if he just spent from the books and periodicals.
Mhm.
So for my own reference, I'm just calling that out. It is a collection we have had for some time and that I'd like to see maintained well. So
Sure.
so the fact that it is a new line item, I'm just trying to give it the attention it deserves. Make sure that it's maintained.
Good.
Does that answer your question on that one?
Yes. I just wanted the library to be aware that there were games and hands-on kinds of activities for children through ALS. And
Thank
that
you.
I wanted
Yes.
this to be
Totally.
I wanted this to be in conjunction with that, but they're two separate things.
Right. Great. Yep. I think that, yeah, that's definitely noted. So the only other line that we need to talk about for the budget beyond those is that revenue from fines and copies. So that one, in the past we put it at 15,000, and this year for next year we put it at 6. So that's a place where we're pretty clearly going to come up short this year too, considering that we basically have had the library closed for 3 months, and we may have it closed for a lot longer. So that's another one that we need to take a look at and see whether or not we want to decrease that number, anticipating that we're going to be collecting way less for copies, because the revenue from fines is basically now when people lose books. Like we're not doing any other kinds of fines or anything from the collection. So that's basically just replacement money for those resources that don't come back. So in my mind, there are really, with this budget, there's only a couple of questions. One is, do we want to decrease that number, revenue from fines and copies, etc.? Do we want to leave it at 6,000? 6,000 is already a pretty significant cut to it. And then the second question is, do we want to defray some of the books and periodical expenses with money from the 215 so that we are able to keep the percent of increase below a 4.99%. So if there are other questions, we could entertain those definitely, but those are the two questions I'd like to answer first. Does anyone anybody on the board here have a strong feeling about those lines?
Some information, Amanda. Do you have a figure for year-to-date amount from fines from that line that you've collected?
Yes, I'd have to look it up, but I do have that information.
Okay.
The $6,000 figure is one that I created. I did it based on the year-to-date revenue that we had collected as of April, the last day of April. And then I said, if we were able to continue collecting money at this rate for the rest of the year, we would come out at about $6,000. Our biggest opportunity, actually, I think, is the photocopies generate at least half of this amount, and we are not currently photocopying because of the challenge of handing materials back and forth between the patrons. For example, if they give us their thumb drive or need technological assistance to connect to the wireless printer. So we're definitely trying to figure that one out, but that would impact that figure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A question, are you getting people to ask about being able to get printed material from the library?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you mean, Amanda, that means you're getting requests for photocopies?
Yes.
And you
And
just
how are you
pass
delivering
through the
those?
window? Yeah.
Pardon me, I had two questions at once.
Oh, yeah, Jay and I said the same thought. What are you doing to give people their photocopies?
Right now, we've been redirecting people to Northern Wilds for larger print jobs and over to Cook County News Herald for smaller print jobs.
Okay, so you're not actually doing it. So
That's
we've lost
correct.
that revenue, which, yeah, okay.
But you're getting
So is-
requests. You're getting
Yes.
requests, so that means that it doesn't have to be a 0 in that particular category. And so I'm trying to figure out why the 6,000 would be maintained as an as an income if we're not doing it, but you're anticipating we will somehow be able to work that particular quirk out.
So I gave you my best estimate based on the information I had in April.
Okay, but what I'm asking is,
Yeah.
the $6,000 is fine. I mean, that's an establishment, and I understand how you got it. But what I'm trying to find out is, will that $6,000 be, in your mind, any different if you can figure out a way to incorporate print services by the library?
Okay, so what
Do
you're
we
saying
need to
is-
think anything about, do we need to think about that figure changing if the library starts to print materials? That's I think what I'm trying to get at. I don't know what to do with the $6,000. I don't know. It looks like if we take it out, then we're going to have to add it to something else, or we're going to have to reduce something by $6,000, and it makes it's a little bit, we're right on the edge of our 5.0 insofar as the budget, and this 6,000 can make or break us.
that
regard.
so that 6,000 is in there as a revenue line, right?
Mhm.
So with a revenue line like that, if we keep the revenue lines conservative, and Amanda's assumption of that number coming from April to equate to $6,000, I think is something that's pretty realistic for that revenue. If that revenue doesn't materialize, then we have the operational balance from 2020 to be able to balance that if it doesn't materialize. What we're talking about is having that some portion of that $6,000 be outstanding, which is something that with the lack of an assistant director for the majority of 2020, we'd be able to cover that pretty easily. I agree with what you're saying, Helen, that we should try and get these numbers as accurate as we possibly can, so that we can predict what we're going to have both coming in and going out. But on this one, with the COVID-19 situation and not knowing when we'll be able to actually begin to offer that service again,
Okay.
we have the option of either decreasing that line item right now, and then trying to take some cost out of something else, or we can leave it in at 6, and we can, with the plan that next year we could have we could use the surplus from 2020 to as a buffer for it. So I think those are kind of our options for those two. Does anybody have any preference for how we deal with that line?
I have the year-to-date in front of me, and I'm just going to get a quick estimate for you, okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. That's good. I guess I must have stalled about the right amount then, so that you could look up all that information.
Keep talking, Jay.
No, I'm not gonna.
No, I
I'll
thought
talk
it was
when
a
I
very
need to
good
talk.
explanation.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I don't know what the numbers look like. Amanda, just jump in when you get those numbers calculated. But what I would default towards is going with a number like 6,000, like an educated guess like that, and then and then we can, you know, kind of figure it out, you know, as we go. The city has run into some situations too where budgeting for 2021 and even finishing out the 2020 budget is it's getting pretty brutal. You know, like it's hard to figure out what exactly to spend money on and not to spend money on, especially when we have a humongous project going on right now. So
Okay, so right now we have about $1,700.
Ooh,
Yeah. It looks like we were projecting, let's just say for photocopies, we were projecting about $5,000 and we're at about $1,200.
So I guess then really it becomes a gamble about whether or not we think we're going to be able to offer that service anytime in the future, as to whether or not we keep that number where it's at. And I think it's good to start with that line, because once we figure out that line, then we can talk a little bit more about the books and periodicals line. But what do we think? John, you had a... Ooh.
Jay, would you explain again what happens if you know, we fall way short of that 6,000? Where's the money come from?
We would be able to use the budget surpluses that we had from 2020. That goes into our operational balance, which is positive at present by quite a bit. So what we would do is we basically would just write it off against that operational balance,
Okay.
which is positive. So as far as the operations of the library, it wouldn't impact any of our numbers too dramatically. But it is definitely something to keep in mind.
Isn't this exactly where we get the money if we have a particularly cold winter and we need, the heat's up? I mean, we have to have more. So this amount of money that we have in our surplus, it's several $1,000s more than what it would be for just what odds and ends would happen. But you also have to have a budget, a certain amount of money for operating in case things kind of fall through the floor.
Correct. Yep. And the finance committee in the past and the policy committee have worked together to make sure that we have a fund balance that is worth a certain amount of time of our actual operations. And that's the reason why we do that, is so that we can cover these kinds of expenses, both for over expenditures for things like heating, and or under collection of revenues like the fines and copies.
Well, with that in mind, I would leave it. I would be in favor of leaving it at 6,000 and not do too much to the books and periodicals. Unless somebody wants to move that number down just arbitrarily, saying that 499 is, you don't know. Last year it came that there was something that wasn't included from City Hall, and so therefore it actually went above the 5 point, but it wasn't anything that the library board had anything to do with, anything that we couldn't get back down to below 5%.
Right. And once the city and the county both sign off on the budget, then how the budget actually is played out then is up to it's up to Amanda, and the administration to just make sure that they stay within those boundaries, and in the past we've been able to do that really quite well, for various reasons, but we don't have any fear of really not being able to meet this budget as a realistic budget, for the next year. So does everyone agree with Helen on that we leave the revenue line the same, instead of bringing it down?
I have a question for Amanda. as I understand it, the photocopy was a substantial portion of that revenue. And do you think that your staff can come up with some way of handling that logistically to resume copying?
We can definitely work harder on it, yes. So the couple of concerns have been money handling and then handling customers' devices and then also increasing the duration of a transaction. I have some ideas for maybe making a machine available outside the window and then it will be a cleaning issue. Leaving a can outside, I think there are options. And I do think that the community needs the service.
Okay, I agree that it would help the community to have that available. And the library could certainly use the revenue. So I do think it's just an issue of logistics, of what are the mechanisms for handling the materials and processing the requests. So given that, I'd say it stays.
Okay, that's fair. Anyone else?
I'm
Any
willing to let
thoughts?
it stay.
Okay,
I think it's very hard to know, but since we have
Yeah,
backups in place, I think we're okay.
yep, we do have some good backups in place. So then the last question about the budget would be then whether or not we want to use some of the 215 money to write down books and periodicals if we leave it at 4.99. There's an argument for both ways. So if we leave it at 4.99, we're basically making a statement to the community that the library deserves to be funded fully, and it deserves to be like that money should come from an annual support, active support by the community. If we lower it, in essence, we're getting the same thing, but we're making a little bit more of a statement that, hey, we're bending where we can. So for me personally, I don't really care either way. I can argue in sound conscience for both of those ways of presenting it. So if the board feels like, hey, let's just leave the books and periodicals at 24.8, sweet, I'm on board. If we as you can see, we've already brought it down from last year. If we want to use some 215 funds to make a statement to the community that we're bending where we can, then great, we can make that argument too. So, any thoughts?
Yes, I think we should not decrease it because I think we do use the 215 for things that we need. And we already have, it's not quite $2,000. It's, what is it, 1,700, the difference that you've reduced it by. And so in that particular case, we might use 1,700 for the, from the 215.
Gotcha.
To add to it. I could go with the 499.
Anyone else?
The edge.
There you go, living on the edge.
Well, Jay,
Personally,
I
if
think
there's any way we can not reduce the funds more than the 24.8, I would really like to see that 24.8 stay. It's very hard to add to a book and periodical budget once you've started taking away from it. So I can understand the need to do that this year, but I'd rather not go any farther if we don't have to.
Well, and that would be reflected in the past. In the past, there's been there's the use of fund balance line down in A44, and that either use of fund balance, or there used to be a line down there that says that said something like use for, or like money from 215 or something like that. And so the money that we would be spending on periodicals would remain the same. We'd still be spending that ballpark $2,500 or $25,000 amount. It's just where it would be coming from. We wouldn't be levying that whole amount as a part of our request from the county and the city. We would just be using some of the designated funds to be able to make the balance. So that's, I mean, we're not saying that we're gonna stop or that we're gonna decrease the amount of books and periodicals. What we're saying is we're just gonna get that money from someplace else for this year. I agree with you though, Chris. Once we start changing that attitude about like, yeah, we can just take it from the 215, then that becomes a slippery slope pretty quickly, especially considering that we have projects that we want to do.
Yep.
Yeah, and Jay, the thing I was going to say is, I would say you are in the best position to know how the council will take this, because that's really the only hurdle, is where their feelings are. And I know the city is in a much different situation than the county right now, just from loss of revenue with the campground and the liquor store. So what's your read on that?
Well, the campground's actually kicking ass and taking names right now. I mean, like, it's pretty absurd actually how much money the campground is making. In the early part of June, we stereotypically run at about 50% occupancy. Well, for like the past 10 to 15 days that we've been open, we typically have been running, like in past years, we run at 50% occupancy, but we've been at like 90% occupancy since the day we opened. It's just insane. Now, that's not going to make up for the lost revenue at the liquor store. And we still have commitments to the golf course, which has been performing better than it has in past years, but is still not going to cover its own expenses. So there's a lot of things to consider there. A 4.99% increase, I think will get through it'll get through no matter what, because we've got the votes on the council for, even if we have some people that object to the fact that it's right underneath the maximum, there are people on the board that see the value of, or people on the council that see the value of the library and that will approve it. It's just whether or not we want to go for a 3-2, a 4-1, or a 5-0, vote on that. So I think if we brought it down a little bit, like brought the books and periodicals down a little bit, it's pretty much a guaranteed 5-0. If we leave it at 4.99% increase, I think there's a pretty darn good chance that we'll get a 5-0 on it. But it's an increasing amount of chance that we would split it, 4-1, 3-2. So if you guys don't care about that, let's leave it at 4.99. Let's leave the library in the best position it can be in.
Well,
For that.
If
I agree.
if you're looking at that particular 3-2 or 5-0, how much recognition would be given to the fact that that the books and periodicals have already been reduced, and that
that's a great arguing point. If you look at the things that we've already agreed that we're going to decrease, we're decreasing in all the right places.
Right,
So.
and these are the travel, but the books are something that now that we have a window, or that people can use materials from the library, the books and the periodicals are very significant to augment the ebooks and the audiobooks. I mean, these they're what we're about. I don't mean just books, but I mean, it's our services. This is what we are about.
Right.
Yeah, and Jay, when the budget is presented to the council, I hope that it can just be communicated that the biggest increases are for staff, and that is the core of and providing service and maintaining a healthy library. And and there were reductions elsewhere. And you could even, you know, you could even say what it would be if it was, well, whatever. No, I guess I wouldn't go there. Never mind.
It could be worse.
Well, I mean, we're like what you said before, Dave. We totally, you know, we're investing in the places where we need to invest. You know, we need to invest in the people that make the library the special place that it is. And that's and I think that that's the right idea. So that's an easy argument to make, saying, hey, like, look at our, you know, look at the staff. They are the ones that make this possible. So we're going to continue to support that. Yeah.
And an additional support to that, recognizing that staff is valuable, but they're even more valuable to have the numbers that we do, because doing the work takes more time. The kind of work that's required of them now. So if we would lose a staff member or try to cut a staff member, which is how you would cut the greatest amount of money, it would just make it so difficult, and the services everybody would get burn out.
Right. So what I'm hearing you guys say is we're going to hold on to the 4.99%, and we're going to present this budget as it is right now to the city council for consideration and approval. Does that sound right?
Yep.
Yes,
Great.
please.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's really great. That's really great conversation. I appreciate all the thought that you have put into that. So then I suppose, Amanda, you can stop sharing your screen, and then we can move on to the policy committee, or to the rest of the reports, I should say.
Do we need a motion to approve this budget for the council?
I think you're probably right. I think we probably do. So is that a motion, Dave?
Yes.
I'll second it.
Okay, sounds good. So a motion to approve, I can't type, 2021 budget. Mills, second. Person. Okay, so we'll do just like we did it before. Chris, your vote?
Aye.
John, your vote?
Aye.
Dave, your vote?
Aye.
Helen, your vote?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Motion passes unanimously. Great. Thank you so much, guys.
Okay.
Really appreciate that.
I'm going to leave the meeting for a minute or so. I'll be right back.
Okay. We'll keep moving, and then we'll, I don't think she's going to miss tons. So policy committee obviously has no report. I don't think that there's any need for a meeting there. Personnel committee, however, so we're at a hiring place, which is pretty exciting. I think you all probably saw the email that that Amanda sent out on this topic. We're trying to find some housing for our. I think my computer's restarting. Oh no! Oh no! Don't do it.
You're still here.
I'm still here. I wonder if I can pause this. I don't know what just happened. I think my computer was trying to update itself. Anyway, let's see if we can keep going as fast as we can. Oh, I hope that I didn't lose that document. Oh no, I didn't. Good. All right, we can finish. So personnel committee, we did a bunch of interviews, or the personnel committee did a bunch of interviews, and we have an assistant library director named Kristen Wojcicki. Wojcicki, right?
I think it's Wojcicki. We'll be working on that.
We'll be working on that. Yep, we'll have to make.
I have an attempt.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you had the policy the personnel report, Amanda?
It's your turn to read your little blip about Kristen, please.
Okay. I went on Google and this is Wojcicki.
Wojcicki.
Wojcicki. It
That
has
sounds right.
the I, it's just W-A, like wa, and then a very short I, Jeski.
Okay.
And if you want to try it, I said that and said that and said that. And anyway, I was repeating anyway, Kristen, I'm going to skip that now. Kristen is a seasoned librarian with skills commensurate with running the library in the absence of the library director, which was one of the important things we were looking for. In addition to supervisory skills, her experience includes collection development, both print and electronic, programming, public relations marketing as a combined, through personal appearances with community organizations, social media, and website maintenance. She has done hiring and training of staff and is familiar with researching multiple databases to assist patrons and staff. The skills and experience Kristen would bring to the Grand Marais Public Library complement, extend, and support those of our staff and director.
Thank you very much. That was lovely.
You said that when I wrote it, sent it into you before, but nevertheless, she came with almost a perfect score on her application.
Great. And she actually stayed at the bed and breakfast when she came up to get a look at the library. So, so I had a chance to sit down and talk with her for quite a while, and I was impressed. She has really good energy, and she seems pretty excited about the possibility of being at our library. So that's pretty awesome.
It's very awesome. Thank you.
So the city council will do that on Wednesday, and we'll be all set. So okay. I don't think that we need to do any motions with that because the personnel committee has already made that recommendation. So then with that said, I'll turn it over. What's that?
What?
Director's report. I said I have something you can motion about.
Yeah, I was about to say, go take it away with the director's report.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys. So at the last meeting, you asked me whether we could stop receiving checks from the Minnesota St. Paul Foundation, and we can't. There's your answer. And 1 second here. I am now showing you a picture of the office that I'm sitting in, which is Linda's office, was Linda's office. And what I would like to ask is, I would like to ask the board for permission to spend up to $6,000 to furnish the second office. This would allow us to be ready when Kristen comes, that we have the 2 spaces set up. And so what we're doing is matching the furniture to what is already in the building. And I'm providing you an estimate that's based on what it would cost to outfit this office today. So $1,200 is going to be the labor, travel, and per diem. And then the product is about $4,555 for what's in here. Now, the second office is smaller, so we should come in beneath this amount. But then I don't have to come back and ask for more money.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, so that was Dave and Helen, right?
Yes.
And do you want that to come from the Hazel Matthews?
Yes, please.
Okay, fine.
My reasoning is it's a one-time thing and just extension of this project.
Correct.
Okay, so we're gonna do the voting just like we did before. Chris, your vote.
Aye.
John, your vote.
Aye.
Dave, your vote,
Aye.
and Helen, your vote.
Aye.
I am an aye as well. Motion passes unanimously. Of course, you'll have to we'll see those expenditures showing up in the bills. So that is, when you're finished with that, just give us a report on how much it ended up costing. Sound good?
Thank you. Yep.
Great. Do you have anything else for the director's report that you want to bring us up to speed on?
So we are extending our pickup windows to until 5 o'clock during the weekdays and also on Saturdays. Now that I have my librarian ones coming in and supporting, I think we can sustain that additional service. And we are working right now. Of course, summer reading is underway. The new book bags that Erica is putting together are just fantastic. So she's creating little grab bags for families that want them, and she will shop for the family for their literature. We're going to start a program like this for adults and be very excited to show them our new book collection, which is hidden behind our closed doors. So we're just looking at new ways to market the collections that are available. We also, as Helen mentioned, there's the One Book, One Minnesota book read that's coming out as a statewide community read. It is addressing issues of race. And I've already purchased the books to join in the book club. So we're going to have physical books, the downloadables will be ready. And then I would also like to get, in addition to the state level community discussion, I would really like to get someone to do a Cook County discussion on this book. But those are all things in the works, and I'm really looking forward to getting some help in here and see what else we can do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
So looking at the rest of the agenda, we took care of the 2021 budget proposal earlier in the agenda. It suppose it makes sense to put it under new business as well, but we've already had that conversation. Does anybody have any closing comments for the meeting?
I just wanted to commend Amanda on her work on the budget with us. Jumping in during the pandemic, trying to figure out future costs and just how to manage everything. I just greatly appreciate her leadership and willingness to problem solve. So thank you, Amanda.
And I also
Awesome.
wanted to say thank you. I also wanted to say thank you for a very clear presentation and discussion of that budget. I picked up what you were trying to talk about quickly, and it really was great. So thank you. That's both Amanda and Jay, and Dave as well, because you were there too. So thank you very much.
Yes, and I'll add my thank yous to all who worked on the budget. Good job.
I definitely take it as I find it a very important thing to present clearly. So I appreciate that I'm actually able to do that.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Great job.
So with that said, I think that we're all done, guys.
Wonderful.
So we can adjourn the meeting at 6:35, and we did it in almost exactly an hour. So that's fabulous.
Have a good evening,
Thank you.
everybody.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.